Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good night, whatever time it is for you. This is the 3rd of August Backdrop CMS user group meeting, and today we're having an open discussion on how to contribute to Backdrop, whether that be through code, testing, documentation, raising issues, all the different answering questions, all the different possible ways that you can contribute, whatever your skill level. My name is Martin Price. I'm a Backdrop developer in Northeast England, United Kingdom, and we'll go to Joseph next.
I am Joseph. I'm a developer in Las Vegas, Nevada. And Tim, I guess.
Sure. My name's Tim Erickson. I'm St. Paul Tim, and I am in Deerwood, Minnesota today. And that's it. Mehmet, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Mehmet. I'm also in the UK. I am a user of Drupal and Backdrop. I'm a sort of early stage developer as well.
Very good. So starting a while back, we began what we were calling community meetings every other week. In this time slot, we're going to just start calling them user group meetings because that's really more of what they've become, and it's more meaningful to people. And talk about the idea for these meetings is that they're to really talk about more sort of user-facing or community, Backdrop user issues, site architects, things like that. How to use modules. We did something 2 weeks ago on a session on upgrading from Drupal 7 to Backdrop. And 2 weeks from now, we're going to do a session on organic groups. Today, we're talking a little bit about contributing to Backdrop with or without code. So ways you can contribute even if you are not really a coder or a developer. We don't have a prepared presentation, so if people have questions, they can help. Otherwise, I think one of the things we can do is talk a little bit about some of the resources that are out there that people can use, and maybe some of our personal experiences. I think both Martin and I, and well, all of us probably have things to share there. So, in fact, why don't we, to start out, just sort of go around the room and talk about what kinds of contribution, if any, we've done. And it's okay if you are new and haven't really done any contribution yet, that would be great. And just say briefly about your history. Myself, I call myself a developer, but I don't spend a lot of time writing code. So my involvement in Backdrop CMS community, first of all, I think one of the reasons that I've really enjoyed, I love Backdrop the project, but I also love Backdrop the community because, to some extent, because it's still small enough that I can really make a meaningful impact, even without like advanced coding skills. That just by advocating for issues in the issue queue, by testing things, by helping with documentation, I feel like with a fairly limited technical contribution, I've made significant impacts in the community. And of course, now I'm on the project management committee and do a lot of things. But I started out really just attending meetings like this one. And I think the first thing I did in the issue queue was just going in and helping to test issues. There's a lot of pull requests in the issue queue that people can go in and test. I also probably did some documentation stuff early on. But Martin, do you want to say some things about your own contribution journey?
Yeah, well, I started off just sort of in my development journey. I created stuff in PHP and MySQL before that, just very basic HTML. Then I discovered Drupal, but I never got to be more than once I discovered Drupal, I was just mainly really a site builder. I never got over the kind of that there always seemed to be quite a high barrier to really getting involved in code and the ways of contributing there. I came to Backdrop when I was looking for a new home from as Drupal 7 was going, and my attempts to get going with Drupal 8 weren't very successful. And right from the get-go, when I started trying to build my own site in Backdrop, and I found an issue with a theme, and I looked at the code and thought, haha, I know how to fix this. This is great. So I managed to find I found the GitHub queue and raised an issue, and then I found Zulip and said, I found the I found the fix for this issue, but I don't know how to submit it. And yeah, and that was on a Friday night in the UK, and I got like several people pointing me into how to submit a pull request, and not really looked back since then. So I've now ported 12 modules. I've also created some modules from scratch or forked them from others, and I also maintain a few modules now. I'm also involved probably one of the main people answering questions in the forum and trying to help people. Sometimes you don't have to know all the answers just to help people. Sometimes you can just steer people in a way, or say, this is where you might want to look. I've also done bits of documentation, and looking at documentation issues in the on our documentation site, which is docs.backdropcms.org, and we've got like the all of the documented code there for Backdrop, but we've also got a number of sort of practical instructions on deploying your guidance. So I've done a few bits there to help improve that documentation. I also host an office hours on Wednesday mornings. Well, it's mornings here in the UK, to try and help people. So, and I also do LinkedIn publicity. So, trying to create a bit of there. So that there's all sorts of, some of those rely on coding, but some of those you don't need to have any. So, like for example, documentation. You might find a bit of documentation, work through it, and find out that it could be worded better. And then all you need to do is submit a request for that to be changed. And if you're keen to be a regular contributor to the documentation, you can get the access rights to be able to update documentation pages. But even just suggesting this could be better worded, so it's done, that is helpful. And even people who are not coders or not experts can help other people. So once you've addressed one challenge in your Backdrop journey, you'll be able to then share your experience with others who are going along that. So there's ways that you can help even if you're not experienced coder. But it's amazing how quickly as you help out, your skills grow. Joseph, do you want to? We've got Wilbur as well. A rare treat.
Sure, I can help. Tim, you're muted if you're talking to us.
Yeah. Well, I was just saying, yeah. Welcome, Wilbur. Go ahead, Joseph.
Sure. Well, I think I started contributing. I think my first core issue was actually a Drupal 7 issue. Like at DrupalCon Denver, I think 7 years ago. I think I was fixing database drivers. And I don't know. I just kind of started, like, grabbed some random coding task and just kept going. Still here now. I do mostly like programming stuff. I'm a core committer, although I don't actually do that stuff for that very much. Contribute, help port modules and fix bugs and things, and sometimes I write documentation.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and I guess I do also like answer questions in Zulip and in the forum quite a bit too.
Yeah. Well, Joseph, you've helped with some great contrib modules. You ported them and created some great modules, like one of my favorites, the block
Configurable block styles.
And we know if there's a performance question, we know that Joseph is the person to ask. So.
Right. So, I mean, Joseph, you kind of got involved working with your dad, right? You were, when I first met you at Bad Camp, I think, and you were a pretty young developer still, it seemed like, although maybe I misjudged.
Yeah, we, he had a computer repair shop at one point in the past and just started taking me to work with him and taught me how to fix computers. And I've just been doing computer stuff ever since. And
then you just got into coding. And I think once you got into Backdrop, you just sort of jumped in and started fixing really hard issues. Right. So, well, at that point, I had already been working for like a big agency for several years. So I had a lot of experience at that point. Okay. Mehmet, have you, recognizing that you're kind of new to our community, I don't know if you've contributed much or at all yet, or did you ever contribute to Drupal?
Only in as much as reporting issues. So I worked with Drupal for a very long time. I mean, that's back from when it was version 4 or 5. And like many people, once Drupal 8 came along and wrecked everything, I just had to find an alternative. And Backdrop was just the obvious choice. I haven't looked back since, really.
Well,
yeah, it's. I mean, Backdrop is Drupal. Early days of Drupal was wonderful. I mean, it was just so nimble. As is Backdrop now. I mean, it's just like I've rewound 10 years and got back to what really attracted me to Drupal in the first place. And I love Backdrop. It's brilliant.
Well, I think we should talk a little bit about just reporting issues as a form of contribution, because it's really valuable, but there might be ways that you could do it a little better for us, and we could talk a little bit about that. But let's come back. Let's check in with Wilbur. Are you available to check in with us or not?
Yeah, I'm here.
So I don't know if we're talking about contribution today. Can you just talk briefly about your contribution journey in Drupal and or Backdrop?
Yeah, I've been a long time Drupal user in the Twin Cities area, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and I work at a Drupal agency and just have a lot of years working with Drupal 6 and 7, and I've followed the Backdrop project, and as my non-professional life, when I help other people with websites, I've kept in touch with Backdrop, and I use that to develop sites now. So I help run the office hours on Wednesday afternoons at 1900 UTC time. And then I also am getting involved with maintaining some modules. One that I'm working on a little bit right now is the Backdrop upgrade status module. And I've done some core commits as well, but just really kind of patching things that I need fixed. So, but pretty committed to the project, and interested to push it forward with some things. So, and I had some free time today, so I thought I'd drop in and see what's happening with the meeting. So,
Thanks. As I suggested a minute ago, talking a little bit more about how just reporting issues is a valuable form of contribution. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that. And Mahmoud, if I can put you on the spot, if you find an issue right now, how do you report it? Where do you go?
Well, my first port of call is just have a look through all the posts and forums, see if there's anyone that has actually.
Right. Oh, did I get lost, or maybe?
No, I think Mehmet's got frozen.
Yeah, maybe you're frozen. So I don't know if you can hear us.
But,
There, you're back. You're back.
Oh. Okay.
You were just saying
Okay.
that the first thing you do is look through the forum.
Yes, yeah. And well, if I don't find anything to do with the forum, well, in this case today, I joined you to ask you in person. So rather than I was just about to post something on the Zulip group, on the Zulip system. And then I thought, oh, okay, there's a meeting going on tonight, so I'll join this and ask directly.
Sure.
But otherwise, I would have just posted something in Zulip. But I just don't know what the best way to do it. To ask questions. It's just very handy that these meetings take place.
I think.
Go ahead, Mark.
I think the forum and Zulip are quite good for kind of support questions.
Yeah.
And one of I think what we'll generally encourage is to use the forum because it's good to then sort of capture, and as you say, when you go and search the forum to see if anyone's raised this issue before, and so having a good number of questions and answers in the forum is quite good for people looking for answers like that. I think if there's a bug or a suspected bug on a module, so I think we do try to be quite open, and sometimes people don't have GitHub accounts, and so if someone raises an issue in the forum and they don't have a GitHub account, we might raise that issue for them on GitHub. But there are GitHub queues for issues with Backdrop core and issues for all of the Backdrop contrib modules, and that's the normal place to, and it's, I suppose the advantages of doing it there is normally the person who's down to look after the module, the maintainer of the module, they're normally subscribed to that issue queue, so they get notifications if someone raises an issue there. So it is the most direct way to get a response. But sometimes you on some of the, perhaps if the maintainer's no longer an active part of the community, sometimes it can be you don't always get a response, and then, but it can be a good thing to do, whether if it's a support question in the forum or it's an issue in GitHub, is to raise it in those places first, and then to put a link to it in Zulip if you're struggling to get any response. So, but yeah, we try to be as open as possible, and if people post in one place and they don't have accounts for the others, we try to be accommodating.
Yeah. So oftentimes people start right by just asking questions. So like support questions, things like what's the best way to import data? Or I'm building a calendar and I want a list of events in a reverse chronological order. Those are great things for the forum. And I think, but at some point, probably the next step, I think, in most user journeys would be to like a feature request. Like,
yeah,
I feel like Backdrop should do this, but it doesn't, right? And I think that's what we have the issue queue for that. I mean, you could bring that kind of a question to the forum, and we don't ever want to require that people have a GitHub account to contribute. But let's say you're thinking, here's an example that there's already an issue for. You're thinking, I run into this all the time where I'm doing my upgrades and Backdrop tells me I need a backup, but there's no, I don't have backup and migrate module installed, and creating a backup is hard. I think Backdrop should have that built in the core. I shouldn't have to, and you might be thinking that. And that's a great topic to come to the issue queue and to first of all find out, has somebody requested that feature before? That's one that someone has. But if not, to go ahead and open an issue. And I think a lot of beginners are afraid to do that because they feel like it's not really fair for me to come and ask other people to create features for me. But I think you underestimate the value that is to the developers of Backdrop, the core developers. We really do appreciate it when people say, it feels like Backdrop should do X, but it doesn't. Now, some people come in and they say, it's really stupid that Backdrop can't do X. And that's less welcome. But if you come in and sort of ask a question, here's an example let's look at this. It's one that I did. And this goes back a while, and it was basically people were asking in the forum, they were asking for help. And people would say, well, give me a list of the modules you have enabled. And one day I thought about it and I went in, and it's actually not easy to create a list of modules that are enabled in Backdrop, in your Backdrop site, and to cut and paste it into the forum. So I just wrote an issue up that said, I think that we should have something like that would help users report issues. I opened up this issue, and then on September 19th, and right away generated some discussion. And this has been talked about now for a while. Basically, we realized that there's a way to do something like that in Backdrop already, but it's not you can create a view. And I created a recipe that did that. But since then we went on, and I think Gregory right now has a pull request that does something like this. It's really nice. But that's the kind of thing you can do. And if you're going to do that, the first thing to do is to look and see if somebody's already opened an issue. And if they have, then just a comment on it. Even if they described the idea perfectly, you might want to say, yeah, I just found this issue and I really like this idea.
There is also a way that you can show your support for existing feature requests within the forum. You want to show that bit, Tim?
That's a great point. We call it the wish list section. And these are all features that all issues that have been created for new features in GitHub, and they show up on the forum. And if you're logged into the forum, you can vote for the ones. If you can vote for this one, and to help us prioritize development. only, so we've had about 30 people, I think, total have participated in this, but that's another way you can look through this list and find things that you'd really like to see. But I think, beyond sort of asking support questions, feature requests are the next thing. The other thing, Mehmet, have you ever found a bug? Just something that you think doesn't work the way it should in core?
Not in Backdrop, no.
Okay. But obviously, reporting those, sometimes you've, like, some bugs are obvious bugs, like you get an error page and it's like, okay, this really needs to be fixed. And it might be something that you can't fix yourself. Other bugs are like, well, it doesn't act the way I expect it to, but now that I know what it's doing, I can just ignore it, right? I can just not pay attention to the way that it looks like it should work, and I can do something else. And I think a lot of users, get to the stage where they just kind of ignore those things rather than report them. And oftentimes those are things that are pretty easy for us to fix. So if you find something like that, like you click a button and you expect X to happen, but instead Y happens, that's a great thing to come and open an issue for. So I'm going to shut up for a second and see if anybody else has anything to add on this.
Yeah, I think there's a few key elements that are really important for raising an issue, and there are templates when you it might be worth, Tim, if you click on the new issue and just show the template for a bug report, so it does help you with a kind of description, steps to reproduce, actual behavior, so what you've actually seen and any error messages and screenshots, and then expected behavior. And then some of these may not be relevant, but Backdrop version nearly always is, but for some things it might not really be relevant what server you're using, but it might be relevant what browser you're using, and then others. So it might be not relevant what browser you're using, but it does matter what your website's hosted on. So if you're in any doubt, then put all of the details in. But if, for example, you can tell it's a database issue because it gives an error message or related to the database, it's not going to be related to your browser. But if you're in any doubt, put all the details in.
I mean, we've went down kind of the technical issue, although we're not like there are other paths that you could go to contributing to Backdrop. But if you're going into the issue queue, we've talked about some of the steps. One of the next steps that you could take beyond reporting an issue is, well, here, if I go down to this one, where did it go? Well, there's the issue that we talked about for creating that list. There's a tag for a feature request. And one of the things you could do, a beginner could do without any code, is just giving feedback on other people's feature requests. So if you find an issue with a tag feature request and you click through it, you can start to see all of these different feature requests. And you can vote for them on the forum site. But if you want to get into the discussion, like add all-day functionality, there we go. This is a feature request that Olaf asked for. Nobody's commented on this. This is something that you think would be really valuable. Adding your comment would help. Just saying, I'd really like to see this feature. I use it for X. That would help move this issue forward.
And sometimes people deliberately put a needs more feedback tag on. So that's where they really want people to provide more information as to what's going to work.
And I'm under the I'm under the firm belief that a lot of people are afraid to give feedback on issues if they don't feel like they're actually contributing. And that's wrong, absolutely wrong. If all you're doing is giving us your feedback or ideas, that is really valuable. And we have a few people that do that, that really just jump into when people suggest, new features, they jump in and offer their opinion. And that, they're not necessarily able to write a pull request to fix it, but they can at least give us feedback on whether or not that's something they would find useful.
Yeah. I think
agree with just comments like this. I agree with the comment and the notion. This would be a good thing. That's helpful.
Yeah. I think as well, it helps developers with motivation if they know that lots of other people are going to benefit from this, and there's lots of people wanting this. It helps people to feel motivated to do things. And I maintain a few projects, and sometimes it's when you've got an old issue and that you've kind of parked for a while because it was difficult, and then someone else comes along and says, can we do this? And it prompts you and says, there's interest in this, I'll get on and fix it. So it's always worth letting people know that you're interested.
Yeah. And by the way, a lot of people like being interested in an issue, and the issue queue might mean 4, right? We have 4 people that say, oh, this would be a really good idea. That's enough to get a developer motivated, because we're not looking for 20 or 30 people. We're looking for 4 or 5. So that 4 or 5 would show a strong interest. And I don't know, we're running out of time already. The next step, I think, in terms of participating in the issue queue would be to actually use the testing tag and to help test issues. If you're on the backdrop issue queue page and you go to needs, where is it? Needs PR needs testing. This means that there is a pull request. Somebody has submitted a fix for a bug or a new feature, and they're just waiting for somebody to test it. And anyone in the community can test things. I don't know if there's a good one. I'm looking for one that might be kind of easy to look at. Martin. Well, okay, this is the one we already looked at. This isn't a bad one. We'll have to see if there's a pull request. So normally, if you're looking at an issue like this and you've sorted and you see the PR needs testing, the PRs are available over here. And I know I would have to basically I'd have to go back and check the history and see. Let's do that. Let's skim to the bottom and see if it says which is the best pull request to test. I have a feeling, see, I'm nervous because it looks like mine is the most recent, but I think Greg has been working more recently. So what I would do is look at Greg's pull request. If you click on any pull request here, you get a sandbox. You get taken to a page, and at the end of each discussion about each pull request is a sandbox. And in theory, you can click on this. I think this one is going to open sometimes. Right now, we have a problem where a lot of the pull requests aren't working and need to be rebuilt, but the sandboxes, but this one does. So I just need the user admin, the login admin, and I can log into the sandbox that has this pull request. And presumably this is adding a report, excuse me, in the reports. Somebody remember debug information. I think that's it. This is
Yeah,
it.
that's the one. Yeah.
This is the report. This is not currently available in core, but this pull request creates this report that you can cut and paste, and it tells just some basic
You've
information.
even got a button at the top to 2 buttons at the top.
Oh,
One
yeah.
for
Copy
two.
to clipboard. Oh, that's not fixed yet, but it's coming. But so Greg is just looking for feedback on his pull request. And so what I would do is go back to the original issue and say, and then go to the bottom and say, hey, Greg, I tested your pull request. I really like what it does. It would be great if it also, or did you know the copy to clipboard is still not working? But I love the idea, say something like that.
Yeah.
That would help Greg get excited and move this issue forward. But so you can test issues and test new features just by using these sandboxes. You don't have to write any code, do anything. We're almost out of time. I'm inclined to just see if anybody else has any questions or things to add, otherwise to kind of wrap this up.
So I don't know if this would really be useful in our issue queue, but I've seen some other projects where they have like a bot that just reacts to every new issue with the +1, the thumbs up emote.
Mm-hmm.
So just so that it shows up on the issue, and then they use those to figure out how many people are interested in that issue.
Right.
Just because
Well,
then, here, yeah.
Some
So
people do. Yeah, some people do the +1 as a way of voting that they like the idea. I think a comment is a stronger endorsement.
Yeah, I think their idea is that a lot of people don't want to make comments, and so that they just make the +1 show up on every issue and tell people to thumbs up any issues they like, then it's like a lower barrier to entry.
Right. But when you say a +1 on every issue, what do you mean by that? That's not helpful.
No, they have a bot that just does one on each issue, so that just to make it show up in the UI. Because otherwise you have to click on the little face and find the emote that you want.
Oh, I see
you have
what
to
you're
click
saying.
on that and add. So
I got it. Yeah, what you're saying is, so if we went to a new issue that nobody had reacted to before,
right?
Like this one, there is you don't know that you have to do that, and so we would automatically add 1 vote to everything, and then people could add on top of it.
Yeah, just so that there's like a visual reminder that you can do that there.
Sure.
I don't know if that would really be good for us, because we already have a different way of doing things.
One of the things I did in the link to this community meeting agenda is in Zulip, and I added some links to some of the articles, blog posts, and resources. We do have, like on our documentation site, we have a contributor's guide that talks about different ways you can contribute, design, usability testing. To be honest, I think the contributor's guide is a little thin. This is another way you could help us make this add content for this contributor's guide, make it better. But we do have one. We have some blog posts on things like how to advocate for issues and here is I've written a number of these blog posts. This is just like a beginner's guide to engage. This is just how to get involved in the community beyond, even just where to ask questions. And here's a good one, is a blog post that Greg wrote. If you get involved in GitHub and you want to create a simple pull request but have never done it before, this walks you through a way you can create a pull request without having to create your own copy of Backdrop locally. You can do it all in the GitHub UI and create a pull request. And here's that describes how to do that. This link is if you are a coder and you want to write pull requests, but this is sort of walks you through the different ways you can contribute, what the tech stack is, and links to a lot of other resources. This was specifically designed for one particular event, but a lot of the information is generic, and you could use this if you're just getting started as another resource. Maybe as the beginner in the room, was any of this helpful at all?
Yes, especially the last section, actually, the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But yeah, I'll definitely be a lot more confident now in posting some relevant comments and contributions in the forum, and look at see what else I can do to contribute in the
Right.
future.
I mean, my very simplest message is if you want to upgrade your contribution a tiny bit, is just make sure you have a GitHub account and come into the issue queue and report issues and ask for things. You know, here's the
Okay.
thing, this would make my life as a backdrop user much better. Adding those, I think people are really nervous about doing that. And if we could get more people doing that, that would be a good thing.
Okay. I shall get myself a GitHub account if I haven't already got one. I think I have.
Now, again, if you don't have one and you have something, just go ahead and post it in the forum. I don't want anybody to, it shouldn't block you from giving feedback if you don't have a GitHub account. But if you're serious about contributing, getting a GitHub account is going to make it easier.
Okay.
I think you can sign up with like a Google account or some other logins as well. You don't have to have a standalone login.
Yeah, it's not hard to create an account, but the main thing is you don't have to you're not committing to writing code if you by creating a GitHub account. You even just to comment and participate in discussions. You need an account, and that's totally acceptable.
Well, it looks like I've got one already.
Good. Okay, I actually have to run off to a doctor's appointment, so I think we should wrap up this meeting. There is the regular weekly dev meeting is happening in 5 minutes. I did see a note from Nate that he plans to be here this week, which he usually is. So anybody who wants to hang around for the dev meeting, and Maymud, if you're not aware, every Thursday at this time, if this would be a deeper level of commitment. If you actually want to get into starting to help fix issues in Backdrop Core, a great thing to do is to just start hanging out at these Thursday meetings. And they're open to anybody. Anybody can join them, and we just talk about what people are working on in Backdrop Core. And it's a great place to ask questions. You can also bring questions like the one you brought today, things like how do I import data? Those are also legit to bring to the developer meeting. But the main purpose of these weekly dev meetings is to talk about what are the current issues in Backdrop Core that people are working on.
Okay. I shall join another time.
Yeah, and you can. Even if you just once a month, get inspired to drop in and see what we're talking about. That's totally fair.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna end the recording. Bye, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Bye.